So, welcome to my Get Ready With Me. Just discussing, am I autistic or am I just an Aquarius? And yeah, there's a lot of comedic value in that, but also something I have been wondering within myself. I am currently on the investigation route to sort of decide whether I am autistic or not, or like where I lie on the spectrum. But yeah, I'm 26 now. Recently was my birthday, so it's Aquarius season, and I've just been reflecting a lot and wanted to talk about this basically. So I have my letter actually that got delivered today about sort of like my results from certain investigations that have happened, so I'll share that at the end. But I think it's just a cool discussion to sort of have, to see whereabouts you fit in, because for a long time I sort of had, like for probably about 5-6 years, I sort of had suspicions about like being higher up on the spectrum than like you the majority of people, but and I think I voiced actually in one of my Get Ready With videos a couple of years ago, and I was like, that's something that I'm now starting to consider and think about within myself, and yeah, now here we are. Something I really didn't want to do was take away, like one of my best friends is quite autistic, and like a couple of people I love have autism, and like in a much more sort of obvious way. And I didn't want to take away any of their like achievements and struggles, because the things which people I know with autism have done are like incredible for people who don't have challenges in regards to communication and stimulation and stuff. So, I never wanted to take away any of that, because I wasn't obviously autistic and anything like that. So, I'm not a medical professional, this is just me chit-chatting and, sort of delving into like, what is the line for me to, basically what happened for me to like trace a diagnosis and to think about it, and then what's going on in my head now, basically. So I'm just prepping my skin, but I'm gonna do just like a normal makeup look, I guess. But I guess being around people that are more exposed to autism, I guess like I said, I'm 26. When I sort of grew up, if you're autistic, you were more likely to be bullied and stuff, just because I guess you got more of a reaction, and kids, it was harder to hide their emotions and things like that if you had autism. So, it was sort of something you were bullied for at school. But hopefully I think times are changing, and, even just having conversations like this, it's like, actually, everyone's kind of on the spectrum. We just need to, focus on how we work and how we operate and how we can make the world a little bit of a better place. But, so I spent a lot of time with someone recently in my life that has a lot of autistic people which they love on a much more obvious scale, and they were like, have you ever looked into like a personality disorder or like a so which I was heavily convinced that I had BPD, and like I'm not ruling that out at all, but I think it's more likely ADHD or autism, and who says I can't have both. But I spoke to my GP and he was more convinced that it was ADHD, and I was like, okay, but we went after the autism diagnosis first. And so basically the main things which I'm going to talk about in this video is sort of like overstimulation and communication issues, which were my main sort of symptoms that were obvious to people around me. And I guess I started to notice as I got older that like maybe I just wasn't, I think as a teenager, like obviously as a kid you're labelled as shy. As a teenager it's sort of like not everyone goes to parties. Like I went to loads of parties and stuff and made loads of friends, but like I just didn't feel that social compared to everyone else, and I felt like there was something like I just labelled myself as shy, But I guess as I got older then I realised like I don't like talking to people, like I don't feel like included in a lot of things, and that's what I think first got me thinking about it, and how like I would react to things compared to like my family or like the people close to me would, and it was just like there was a big difference. Foundation. Actually, I'm going to prime my set my primer. So I can remember the feeling of overstimulation from like my earliest memories, and the feeling of frustration that I felt so heavily of not being listened to and not being heard. I just felt immense frustration that people couldn't understand what I was saying, and like I couldn't understand what other people were saying. Like I was very, very smart, but like instructions from a teacher I couldn't follow. Like I would always be confused and like copying off my friends and, you know, asking my peers. Like I would listen and it just wouldn't go in. And I know that like people in my family have said that like they'll be asked a question, but they're not, they can understand all the words and stuff, but they're still not sure what they're actually being asked. And I think that's something that was evident to people that have raised it with me recently, and they're like, why don't you understand this? Or like, I'm just saying this in the most simple terms that everyone uses, and it's like, I don't know. And then part of that is because I take things very, very literally. But then I start to think I haven't always done that. Which brings me onto this whole video topic of, am I autistic or am I just an Aquarius? Because, you know, like, is it something that I've realised recently, so I stopped masking it and I stopped trying to act like I've been talked to and I'm just accepting myself for who I am? Or is it that I just, you know, will communicate my needs, and if other people don't communicate their needs explicitly, then I won't, I mean, that's their responsibility. I'm not going to chase that up. Like, we're all adults at this point. Obviously, I'm not going to expect kids to do that. I'm going to read between the lines with kids. But is it just the fact that I'm an Aquarius and it's like, you know, I rely on other people to express their needs to me because I'm not going to look after everyone. You know, like I am want to be a bit different in society, and it's like I'm not going to just bend to everyone's needs, because if I need something, I'll communicate it clearly. And that's something that I learned in the last few years, especially in a lot of like my spiritual practices, is like, you know, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with people who don't tell me what they need, and I'm not going to feel bad for not doing something or reading someone's mind because they're old enough to express their needs to me. And I think that was definitely a choice I remember making of like, okay, you know, it's not my fault if, you know, I've done something harmless in my opinion and someone's been upset with it and not raised it to me, because in my opinion that's up to them to raise it with me, and if it doesn't bother them enough then they won't raise it. But if it bothers them to the point where they want to change it, then they will raise it with me, and then I need to act. And then you add in anxiety into all of that, which I think added to the reason which I made that decision to sort of act how I'm going to act unless anyone tells me that I'm hindering them or hurting them in any way. Because obviously I'm not a robot. Like, I have an understanding of like basic human needs, wants, rights and stuff. Like, I'm not going to intentionally hurt someone. But, you know, I think there's a lot of selfish people out there, and I lived a lot of my life people pleasing and doing things for other people at the expense of myself. So that's, I think, what kind of adopted the idea of like, I'm going to do me. If you have a problem with that, then you need to tell me, and then we can work something out, you know? Because I think before I was so anxious and so people-pleasy that I would just try and guess what everyone meant, and I'd try and read between the lines all the time, and it became exhausting to the point I was really neglecting myself. And that's, I think, when I sort of found out the teachings of like, look, people are adult enough to have, you know, they're like, I'm responsible for telling you if you've hurt my feelings and not met my needs, and if I don't want you in my life anymore for a certain reason, and everyone else is responsible for communicating that too. So I stopped. No, like I said, I remember the decision to stop second guessing everyone's moves and just taking people as face value until I'm shown otherwise. So then I think, you know, am I autistic, or is it just like a conscious choice of me being an Aquarius that wants to be a little bit problematic to society and, you know, not gonna be empathetic as I should be or as empathetic as I was because I was super anxious, second guessing everyone's moves towards me. Like, I don't know, like, if you say you like me, I'm gonna tell my mind that you like me unless I'm shown otherwise. And maybe I just sort of took that thought a little bit too far and then just took people for exactly what they said to me. But then I think of like issues like in the workplace and stuff, like at places where I've underperformed in society, like work and school, and it's like I'm more than capable to do my job. Like, I have been, not to boost my own horn, but I have been highly praised in every single job I've ever had except for my current one, which has been the longest job. But it's always because I've always not had like any friends at work, and like at school I never started to have any friends, like any clubs I was really good at, I never had any friends. I just did what I was there to do and left. And that's what everyone would say. They're like, you just crack on with your work, you don't mess around, you're not there for a laugh, you're just there to work. And it's like, in this place, I've been there for so long, like these people are my friends. So, there's more, I'm not completely laser focused on the job. There's obviously like a personal aspect to it too, which I've never ever had. And then again, in the workplace, it's like, get an instruction. Like, I don't read between the lines. If you ask me to do something, I will do that. People have asked me to, like, I'm a personal assistant. People have asked me to do things before and I've done it, and they've come back to me and they're like, Jasmine, I was joking. And I'm like, oh, like, what? And the same is sort of like talking in a very professional way. Like, if people, I think I made this mistake one time of saying, like, people always sort of talk about this certain manager, right? And no one agrees with how they act, but they say, well, it's so-and-so's orders. So in an email I put, so-and-so orders. Like, someone was like, oh, why is this happening? And I said, it's so-and-so's orders. And I got called up and was like, Jasmine, you can't say that in an email. And I was like, well, why do people talk like that? Why would you say that behind their back but not in front of them? Like, I don't understand that. And I also think that's another thing. Like, when I don't think I gossip very much or anything like that. So, if I say anything, I'm happy to say it in front of anyone. I think there's only very, very few instances where I wouldn't. And, maybe that's a habit I really need to stop. But, it happens. But, so maybe it's something like that. Like, I sort of made the conscious choice to, like, stop gossiping, like, not really caring about what other people think about my thoughts of them. Because likewise, I don't care about what other people think of me. Like, a lot of people always say to me, like, oh, but they think this. And I'm like, okay. And like, I've had people say to me, like, you need to tell them off for thinking that of you. And I'm like, I've raised it with them. Like, it's their choice if they want to think that of me. I'm not going to spend any more time with them, like, longer than I have to. Because they think this of me, like, I'm just going to do me, like, their opinion of me is wrong. But do I care that they think that? No. Unless it has an effect on my life. And again, that's a very, very Aquarius thing to do, because it's just sort of like, yeah, think what you want. Like, I'm an outlier, I'm an anomaly to society. But I don't know, I think it's definitely a mix of it, because like, people say to me that I deliver things in quite a rude or rash way. But I just think, like, why wouldn't you just be straight to the point with something? What's the point of beating around the bush and, like, fluffying things up when you could just be like, you smell? Or, like, what else do people say to me that I say that's not okay? I think the smell one was a recent thing. But also, like, that's the treatment I would want. I would want people to be completely upfront with me. If I walk into a room and I'm not smelling good, I want every single person in the room to be like, Jazz, you stink. Like, you can say it in a nice way, but especially the people I love. Like, I want them to be like, oh my gosh, like, get out, get some spray, get some deodorant on, sort of thing. But again, maybe that's just like, that's how I want to be treated. So that's why I'm like that with other people. Maybe I'm not autistic. Maybe it's just, I appreciate that direct honesty. And other people don't. Or maybe it's just me wanting to be a problematic Aquarius. I don't know. But then furthering to that is that the overstimulation. So this is something I learned about probably in the past year. And it's something which when I learned about it, I was like, yeah, no, that's me. Like, I remember there would be music in the house and I would scream as like a kid, like turn it down and stuff like that. And I really could not handle it. And I just thought, everyone just laughed at me. And I sort of just assumed that I was not appreciated in the household and that people didn't care about my needs. But maybe it was just because my needs were different to what they were used to. Like, I have an older brother and he's very clearly ADHD. So, like music and things, he doesn't tend to get overstimulated that quickly. Not saying everyone with ADHD doesn't get overstimulated, just in my brother's case, that wasn't what was going on. But, I remember from a young age, and I think I have a plethora of mental health issues as well. Like, I remember hearing music would literally like when I'd hear music when I was a kid, I didn't realise it at the time, but I would try and suffocate myself because I could not deal with it, and I didn't want to deal with this being anymore because I couldn't deal with the overstimulation of the music. And then that gets more complicated as you grow up because you have hormones and you get headaches, and I'm a migraine sufferer, which amplifies all of my senses. So then all of my senses make my physical pain worse and makes me feel sick. So like I can smell so much more and that makes me feel sick. Hearing and lights just is so painful to the head. So then it's like, am I just oversensitive to noticing different senses because I've suffered with migraines and that amplifies my senses? So I'm more aware of which senses trigger migraines and which don't. So that's why I'm always hyper aware of all of my senses to make sure I avoid the ones which trigger my migraines. I don't know. It definitely gets very, very confusing. I would say that the stimulation thing is a giveaway to me of the autism, for sure, because it's just, there's no other sort of explanation for it for me. Like even with this, I think that's a big thing about why I want to move out so badly, is because like I can't control like level of sound in this house because it's not my house. And like often I'll come home and I'll be completely paralysed and I'll just lay on my bed, and sometimes I'll even be crying, or lay on the floor and be crying, and you know, sometimes that's even led to like hurting myself, to be quite honest, because I can't deal with that feeling and emotion. And I think the more I understand that, it's like, oh, that makes sense, along with sort of a sad moment and habit of harm or bad thoughts. But as in when you're in the habit of having those bad thoughts, if I then feel something overstimulation without like a direct cause, like someone's died in my life, and that, you know, that makes a sense as to why I'd be really sad. If I'm overstimulated and I'm used to hurting myself when I'm sad or not feeling right, then that would then, the overstimulation would cause me to hurt myself, if that makes sense. So I guess that's kind of like the roundup summary of why I thought I could be autistic, or my autistic symptoms. You know, like saying again, like I was very, very shy, but also I'm not shy. I'd actually probably consider myself an extrovert. Like if I'm at a party, I'll introduce myself to every single person there. I won't really care much what they think of me. You know, I'll float around like a little social butterfly. Like I'll get people up and dancing. Like I'm not shy in that sense. I'm not an introvert in that sense. I do definitely prefer my own company, but again, that's, I think, learned because that's something I can control all factors in, and I can, you know, determine or judge whether I'm going to be overstimulated, and I know how to deal with that myself. But when there's other people involved, like I don't want to limit their freedoms and their life and what makes them happy. I guess there's also the added effect of trauma, and someone that I used to know is a YouTuber, and they've made a great video about like effects or like symptoms of autism versus symptoms of PTSD, and that I think was the first sort of trigger point of being like, yeah, that sounds like me. So I'll link that down below. It's quite lengthy, but then so is this video. But you know, if this doesn't help you, then that one might. But yeah, I think that sort of first got the ideas in my head of like, oh, like I wouldn't at first think she has autism. I think she was just sort of like me, like a bit shy, but also an extrovert, whatever. And I think she's very open about other things. But you know, I think is similar to me in the fact that like we both probably have BPD as well. Or have symptoms of that. I don't actually know if she's been diagnosed, but you know, explore her channel and you might find out more. But yeah, so then it's like, am I just, and then that pairs along with like masking, and sorry I didn't explain earlier, but masking is basically what autistic and ASD people are meant to, I'll kind of learn to do to sort of fit in the mould of society a bit more, like eye contact and asking how you are and things like that. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I guess a PTSD effect of trauma could be like excessive people pleasing, which also is similar to masking, because, you know, you're just doing what you've been taught to do to survive and get further in life. So it's all very complicated in that sense, but I think for me definitely is the communication issues and the overstimulation for sure. I don't like bright lights at all. Like, I think it's a very common thing for people to not like the big light. I'm very much like that. I could, candlelit everything, but again, I think that's something very common. But then raises the other point of pretty much everyone is on the spectrum. I think it's very, very a big reach to say that there's no one on the spectrum. Like, we're humans, we're not like robots, we're not black and white, we are a massive grey area in terms of being and living. So yeah, I'd say that everyone is on the spectrum. And I think, to be fair, my general beliefs are very spectrum based, like gender, like attraction, sexuality, and things like that. Like, I never think anything's just black and white, so that could just be a me thing. But again, it's weird, it's interesting. I've almost finished my makeup now, and I guess I'm probably waffling, and that's a good sign as to Jasmine, stop talking. But so let's do the brown first. So yeah, what recently has been going on in my head is like, am I actually autistic? Or is it just me saying to myself, I'm going to express my needs, and if you don't express your needs, then that's not my problem, and I'm not going to take that weight on myself to guess what your needs are or read between the lines, because quite frankly, I have my own life, I have my own people to take care of, I have my own goals, and reading between the lines of every conversation is just not something I want to do anymore, And also that can be inferred in so many different ways. Like, I studied history, like literally you get scripts that are interpreted in so many different ways, and it's like that sets the course for what we learn to be history and what we learn to be truth. And it's like, I read that and see something completely different to what this historian has said that everyone follows, But something that has sort of helped me along this is that, it's not, I guess the conclusion of this is like, I don't really know. I think I'm probably a mix of both. Like, I think I am quite autistic, but I also do heavily fit into the stereotypical Aquarius, like slightly outside the societal norms kind of girly. But then I don't know. But yeah, so even that is a great example of like, there's no clear conclusion to this rant, but what has helped me is learning about it and understanding that, okay, the reason why I've not been successful in this area of my job is because I took that direction literally. Or, I said, or, someone said to me that they were going to meet me at 2:30 and they met me at 3:15 and I lost it. Do you mean, like, I took it very, very literally? You're going to meet me at 2:30. So why are you here at 3:15? Like, do you not care about me? Am I not important enough to like be here on time for? But it's also not something that like I'm late for things. I'm quite often late for things, and I understand myself that I can be late, and there are multiple factors which make me late all the time. But yet my head cannot compute to someone else being late. Do you mean I take that as like a personal attack? I'm like, why are you late? You said you were going to be here at 2:30. But I guess learning about like, oh yeah, I take these things literally because I could be autistic, but also, I could just be an Aquarius, but for any reason I take a lot of things literally. But even just understanding that you're not alone in that. And also, for the record, when people have ever said to me, my whole mental health journey is growing up, you're not alone, it's never helped me. It's made me feel insignificant, it's made me feel like you're not listening to me, like I've never liked that. But in this instance, not being alone helped me because like, I'm not just rubbish at my job. I'm not just a horrible person that no one wants to be around. I'm not, being taken for granted for. I'm not, intentionally not having my needs met by people. It's that I'm not expressing them in a way that they understand, or I'm misunderstanding what they're saying to me, or I'm taking something they said 3 years ago, literally, and I still take it as gospel, as part of their personality, or like part of the dynamic relationship we have. And just understanding that is sort of like, okay, like I sent that email. You see that as rude. But I now know not to take things literally. And if I'm in a workplace, I would then be like, oh, like double check things. And, trial and error is sort of the main thing I've learned. But also I sort of stand by the fact that, if you're not expressing your needs to me, that's not my problem. Like, obviously I can tell if you're upset, I can tell if, not obviously, that's bad. Me personally, I feel like I can tell if someone's upset and I can tell if someone is stressed, and I feel like I actually take more note of that. And if someone walks into the room, I kind of look after them more than other people in the office would, I feel, because I empathise with them and I don't want them to feel stressed or lonely or embarrassed or anything. Yeah. Let's take this down. Brush my hair. So yeah, I got my letter through today and basically was told by the NHS that they're not going to refer me further. So I've had a couple of investigations like beyond GP, and I've sort of had like my family give like statements and fill out questionnaires about me and stuff. And then they got to the point now where they're like, you're functioning fine in society, like you don't really need our help, which is fair enough because I don't need help. Like it's fine. I literally just wanted a diagnosis to sort of, mainly for like my workplace, to be like, look, I'm not being troublesome. I just need you a clear explanation or a clear instruction because I could be autistic and I'm going to take you literally. But also I've learned through the investigation process that like I can express that need to my bosses or my peers and be like, look, is that what you really mean? Or like, can you show me exactly how you do that? Or like, okay, but how do you word that and how does that look? Because I need, a direct, clear instruction. And then like, I'm good. I'm the best work you will ever find. So yeah, like I don't want to waste the NHS time, money, resources for them to help me and stuff. But the fact that I got this far within the investigation process and everything I learned through it, the kind of questions they were asking made me think a bit more about things. And I mean, some of them were vague. I think one of the questions that always gets come up on TikTok is like, would you rather go to a party or a library? And it's like I don't like libraries. It gives me PTSD from uni where everything was really bad. So never want to go to a library, but I guess they assume if you want to go to a library, then you're probably autistic. So like some of the questions are vague, but some of the questions were helpful and made me think about things. But also just the acknowledgement that like I was listened to and I wasn't seen as difficult. My GP sort of understood me and understood that like, yeah, wanting to suffocate yourself because music is loud isn't necessarily normal behaviour. And feeling like people aren't caring about you and things, and to me that definitely borders on BPD and OCD stuff, and I guess all these things do overlap. But just sort of learning that like, okay, certain situations overstimulate me and that's okay because I'm still fun and I'm still cool and I still have a great life and people still love me. And like a lot of banter I don't get. But is that just because, I don't know, I have different humour, But at the end of the day, I'm an Aquarius. But the joke, which I don't think I've explained very well, am I autistic or am I Aquarius, is because Aquarians typically want to be different. They don't communicate like everyone else. They have their own way, and I think that's very sort of in line with what we think of an autistic person. So they do things their own way and they have their own, they say beat to their own drum a bit. And it's like, that's what Aquarians do. And, I feel like I did make that decision to just take everything at face value because I'm wasting my time if I don't, But again, that could be PTSD from being lied to and being deceived to people deceiving me, where I don't trust people. And, I then just think, well, it's not my business. If you're lying to me, you're lying to me. Like, karma will get you sort of thing. And I'm just going to take everything you say as face value because the exhaustion of trying to read between the lines and he said, she said is not something I want to be ever a part of anymore. And you can say what you want to me. My opinions are going to be my opinion. You can't sway them. I don't want to sway yours in any way. Just that sort of vibe. But I also don't know how to start my fringe. I kind of just do something messy. But I'm all ready now, and I think I've been repeating myself an awful lot, and there's probably things which I'm going to go to sleep tonight and think, oh gosh, I should have said that. But I think I need to sign off now. So that is my little get ready with me, discussing whether I'm autistic or I'm just an Aquarius. But no matter what you're thinking about yourself or whatever, you'll find complete happiness, complete people that love you and make you feel loved. But I do think understanding and delving into, different people and different ways people communicate, different ways people live is really helpful. It made me very, very seen. And, I don't want to suffocate myself now if I'm overstimulated. I instead just take a lovely nap until, whatever intense sense around me has stopped and try and control things around me as much as possible, which again results in a lot of alone time. But I'm 26 now and I'm completely fine with being alone and whatever else. So yeah, beat to your own drum. What perfect timing, because my camera is now about to turn off because it's overheating. But if no one's told you lately, I'm super duper proud of you. I love you so much, and I will see you in our next video, my darling. Bye.